The fabled energy field known as the ever-elusive Force grants its users a myriad of incredibly formidable mystic abilities, which all have been utilized in battle against one another for thousands of years. Members of the Jedi Order and acolytes of the Sith alike have pioneered numerous different Force-related abilities over the centuries, each continually trying to gain an edge in conflict over the other, in order to finally obtain ultimate superiority over the light or the dark respectively. Despite the development of multiple telekinetic abilities to various forms of force lightning, and even the act of healing a wounded individual from the brink of death, there are several force powers that seems promising in theory, but that we haven't actually seen before, and today we want to explore why. Given what we know about the Force, several other abilities seem to be reasonable extensions of established Force lore, yet there is no indication of manifestation of any of these abilities in modern Star Wars canon, one specifically that we want to talk about today. For instance, if a Force user can utilize the Force to make various objects levitate, or even fly through the air as they've been known to do for centuries, then why can't Jedi and Sith alike levitate themselves? Why can't the Jedi fly? Well, stick with us today, weary acolytes of the galaxy, and let's discuss why the Jedi and Sith don't use their mastery of the Force in order to fly. As we begin to open up this holocron, however, a lot of you acolytes have not actually subscribed to the channel yet, so if you're finding this lore interesting, force crush that subscribe button. First, it's important to draw a distinction between the terms of flight and levitation, as Force levitation is a power that has been prevalent on screen for years in Star Wars lore. Force levitation allows a Jedi to remain suspended in the air for a prolonged period of time, often during the instance of intense meditation or focus. But we are talking specifically about the practice of flying, which would entail the ability to steer and maneuver oneself throughout the air at high velocities. If a Force user could rapidly move themselves through the air from one point to another with precision and control, then we would be inclined to consider this to be flight, but we are not referring to Force levitation. It should be noted though that Dooku and Darth Vader both prominently use Force levitation, and we have seen them use it on multiple instances. However, they again do not use the Force to fly. Throughout Star Wars lore and the history of the galaxy, numerous Jedi and Sith alike have come close to actually using Force flight, and each have utilized the basic principles to some extent in combat. Jedi Master Comac Vitus in particular was regarded for his affinity for Force levitation, and he practiced this maneuver very regularly. During meditation, he was known to levitate above the ground to a much stronger degree than many on-screen instances, and he could guide himself to a certain degree using Force flight. Even this prominent Jedi Master, though, was unable to create a velocity which would have aided him in combat, and he was restricted primarily to the immediate area that surrounded him. Perhaps the closest thing we see to Force flight on a wider scale is Force-enhanced leap, which numerous Jedi and Sith alike utilize regularly, and have been a mainstay of Jedi teachings for years. This augmented jump can allow a Jedi to effectively fly through the air for short durations, channeling their Force powers to carry themselves further than what would otherwise be possible for a regular human. Even Yoda, in his frail and aging state, uses the Force to perform high-intensity acrobatics that should not be possible for a Jedi this late in his life. But it never quite amounts to a full flight, and the simple explanation for this is that Force flight would demand an incredibly taxing amount of raw power that even the most elite of Jedi simply cannot spare. The sheer energy necessary to spend on the idea of a flight, even for only a few seconds, would drain even the most powerful of Jedi immensely, and they would not have any strength left to fight off whatever threat they may have been facing in any given moment. We know this in the lore for a few reasons. First and foremost are a few key scenes wherein Jedi Knights push the extent of their Force leaps to the very edge of what we already were shown to be capable of. For instance, there have been several instances wherein a pair of Jedi actively help one another to augment their Force jump even further than what they could do on their own. This slingshot maneuver requires a substantial amount of trust between the two knights in question, simply due to how much risk it requires. The basic idea entails one knight leaping freely into the air using their Force jump in tandem with the other Jedi, who was pushing them even further with their own Force abilities. However, it has been stated that this is very risky. Perhaps the closest we see to controlled flight from a Jedi or Sith in canon comes during Episode 8, The Last Jedi, wherein Leia is stranded in the depths of space after being ambushed by the First Order. But there are a few extenuating circumstances here on the brink of death, and in one final act of salvation, Leia uses the Force to guide herself through space in perhaps one of the most well-controlled flight courses that we've seen to date. However, of course, she was not inhibited by the likes of gravity or wind resistance, and Leia is one of the most powerful, naturally Force sensitives of all time. We have seen Jedi and Sith before actually actively control their falls, however. However, again, this is only for a brief period of time. It is believed, at least in my opinion, that a Jedi and a Sith are capable of controlled flight if they are powerful enough. However, they simply deem it too risky, as not only does it require an intense connection with the Force, that being the light or dark side, but it also requires the Force to be nearly depleted, as it is intense meditation, along with them using as much Force power as possible to propel themselves. We know that Jedi and Sith alike can actively levitate hundreds of pounds, if not thousands of pounds at a single time. But there is something along with controlling their own very body that requires so much more concentration, and this is why Jedi and Sith alike refuse to use this ability. I do believe, however, that some of the most powerful Darksiders and Jedi alike could actually use the Force to fly to some extent. However, again, they deem it too risky, and it appears as if only the upper echelon of Jedi and Sith alike can use this ability to fly. Again though, it is very, very taxing, or else of course the likes of Darth Sidious would have used the Force to fly when he was thrown down the reactor shaft of the second Death Star. We know that Darth Vader, again, and Count Dooku have been shown to use the Force to levitate. These are two of the most practiced hands in all of Star Wars, and they have used the Force to levitate themselves and prolong their already impressive Force jumps. But again, this does still not match up to the likes of flying. Again, even Master Yoda does not, and apparently cannot, use the Force to fly. This simply appears to be something that the upper echelons of the Force will not allow a Jedi or a Sith to achieve. And if they are able to achieve it for only a few brief moments, it appears to be incredibly taxing. But anyway, friends and students of the Force, what are your thoughts on this, and your thoughts on why Jedi and Sith appear to not be able to fly to merely any extent? Do you believe that it requires simply too much Force power for an individual to use the Force to propel themselves forward at a velocity of flight? Or is there another explanation that we've yet to hear from Star Wars lore before? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Thank you so much for your support. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.